Hi, welcome back to our channel. I'm Dana Golden, and this is the journey of our family through addiction and recovery. Today you're going to hear from our girls again, Sophie and Mimi, as they navigated with having a father going off to prison. You'll hear from them about the ensuing investigation, having to drop him off at prison, and then what it was like with him out of prison. We hope you enjoy and learn something, and here they are.
That was a devastating day.
I was in 7th grade. You were in 9th grade.
We came home from school and Mom was waiting for us in the kitchen, and she said, "Oh, hey, quick, I have to tell you something." And we said, "Where's Dad?" And she said, "Dad was arrested today at work." It was front page of the local newspaper the next morning, and we chose not to go to school just because we knew most people would have seen it by then.
Yeah. I remember when I did go back to school, I specifically remember one girl come up to me in like a group of people and said, "My mom saw your dad in the newspaper," and I started crying. Like, it was so embarrassing. People were not nice about it.
People assume the worst, and that's what wasn't fair. And it's unfair too that that had any reflection on us as people, but
especially it's so young,
right? And it's a confusing time, and there's so much going on. So it was hard to grieve, and then in the public eye as well.
Because it was very publicized throughout Minnesota.
The sentencing was an extremely emotional day. I think we were all just had a pit in our stomachs, so nervous what the judge would have to say. We had millions of letters and, filled the benches with people there for him. But at the end of the day, you don't know how the judge is going to rule. We sat with our mom, and she was of course nervous because now she was going to be a single mother, and it was it was the sentence we were expecting, but we were all tears, super emotional, just because it was finalized, and the wheels were turning, and now we were going to see him go.
Yeah. I honestly don't remember it much, and I was 15. It wasn't like I was super young, but I think I kind of like blacked out that day in my memory. The only thing I really remember from it is just seeing my mom just like bawling at the end.
And she doesn't cry.
And my mom doesn't. I don't think I ever seen my mom cry before that. But as far as the rest of it, I think it was such a horrible day that I just blacked it out. So I remember that day like it was yesterday, actually. I think we drove up to Duluth where he was, which is about a 3-hour drive.
The night before?
Yeah, and we did dinner and walked around there and just hung out before we went to the hotel. And I think we were kind of in denial. Like, we had so much fun that day, and I just remember laughing and having like a great day. And I think we were in denial about what was coming, but as soon as we got to that hotel room that night, I think it all kind of hit us and the mood completely changed. And I think that's when reality set in, really what we were there for. So it definitely was hard that night and the next morning.
And not even reality, also the fear of what was coming the next day. I think we were trying to, have as much fun as we could to kind of make up for the time we were going to lose with him. But the next day, dropping him off was very quiet. We, we're just scared for him. And I know he was, it's just the unknown that we were all feared for. So we dropped him off. It was extremely, easy, and, it wasn't a scene by any means. It was pretty, basic. He just kind of walked in and turned himself in. But saying goodbye was really hard, and it was just like time was going in slow motion. Like we weren't ready to kind of walk away.
I think we really did have a good relationship and started building a better relationship when he was in prison. We would go up to visit him a lot, and we'd talk on the phone all the time. And I think him having us come there was so key because he loved to show us off and be like, "Guys, look at my daughters." He was so proud to like have us there, and I think that was kind of the first time when he was really sober, able to really be so proud of us about something, like my volleyball accomplishments. Sophie was in college at that time, so that was like the first time he was really sober and present in our lives.
Yeah, we definitely tried to visit as much as we could. It was hard, of course, being in high school and then college, but we tried to make that trip as often as we could. It was long but emotional days. We would do the drive 6 hours in a day just to see him, but it was always worth it. It was crazy how just seeing us could totally change his mood, and if we couldn't come, it was a very devastating week for him because we knew how much he looked forward to that. But even emailing and those phone calls, it makes you appreciate all that so much more, not having the freedom to just call him when something happens.
It was kind of hard to see too, like he would get so excited about like the food that he got during visiting, like that was the best time he got food of the whole week. So it was like kind of hard to see how excited he would get. Like me and Sophie wouldn't even eat that food. Like it totally grossed us out. But that was the best part of his week, was to be able to eat the vending machine food.
And play cards, and just, it was our time to kind of rebuild our relationship. We were both in school out of state. So we couldn't unfortunately be there for his release. Our mom was there for him, and we got a FaceTime him the second he was in the car. And I mean, that was so exciting, and just to see his face over a camera it had been years. We scheduled a trip that we could both fly home and spend that weekend with him, and it was so exciting having him back. But at the same time, you could feel his hesitation and his fear, and just kind of starting life over again. We really felt for him and just wanted to be as supportive as possible, just because we all were learning how to have our relationship, but he was starting life over again. So
I mean, I think it was really hard on everyone because me and Sophie were out of state. She was close in Ohio, I was in North Carolina, and I was also playing volleyball, so I was in season, so it was really hard for me to come home. And I remember having to explain to my teammates why I was coming home, and that was like a really hard conversation because none of them knew about my dad at that point. So that conversation, just having to explain to my coaches and my team why I had to go home, was really tough. But then I think coming home and seeing him, and he came being somebody who owned a multi-million-dollar business to now working at Goodwill when he got out of prison, just so he had an income to show his PO officer, and just seeing how depressed he was at that time and scared. And I think it really took a toll on us too, because you always look up to your parents, they're always the one there for you, but like it's really hard to see them in that state where they don't know where they're going next,
and you have to be there support.
Yeah, it was really interesting, I'd say.
Like we touched on a bit, it was kind of a new start, but not in a necessarily positive way. It was almost going backwards. He was released. He was set to go in a halfway house. Neither of us wanted that, so we kind of begged our mom to let him live with her, and she did. So that was a huge relief that he didn't have to be in a halfway house. But at the same time, he is now working at Goodwill. He, is reporting and calling from a landline 3 times a day. There's not a lot of freedom that comes with it. He now has to kind of start over from scratch, can't go back into his original field. So he was just, you could just tell he was beyond defeated, kind of had no hope.
Didn't know where to go.
Didn't necessarily have any desire to start over again. And just confused. It's like the world stopped for him, but it kept going for us, and now he's thrown back into it. And even the iPhone was so new for him. That wasn't something he experienced. So it was just a huge setback for him, and he really felt like he missed out on so much. It was really hard to get him back there mentally and excited about life again.
I think you hear about all the time how people reoffend to go back to prison, and you're like, how could anyone ever do that? Like, isn't it the best thing to get out of prison? And from somebody on the outside, like, yeah, I'm sure it seems great, but we really experience like firsthand how hard it really is for somebody to start over once you do have a felony on your record and you've been somewhere that you don't have to pay bills, you don't have to
wake up in the morning and decide what to do.
Right. It's a schedule, and it's obviously it's not a great schedule, and it's not something good, but it's a different life in prison than it is in the real world. And so I think seeing him having to struggle to find a job and figure out what was next for him, because of course now that you're a felon, like you're gonna have to make something happen on your own. It's not easy to just get a job. So before he really knew that he was going to start with interventions and being a life coach, it was a really hard struggle for him to figure out how
find
he was going to
purpose again.
Yeah, at that age, how he was going to build a career for himself.
Well, thanks again for tuning in this week. We're super glad you joined us. Please subscribe if you like what you see. Also, in comments below, let us know what you're looking for, what kind of content you'd like to see. If you have any questions for any of us, me, Dana, as a codependent in a family married to an addict, from David, the addict, and what it's like through his journey of recovery, and also from our daughter's perspective, being raised in a home with addiction. So be back here next week, and we'll look forward to seeing you again.